As mentioned in a previous video, each county task force team will run 2 field events during the year. For the Callaway County Task Force team, we will be conducting these events in the spring and summer to coincide with when students are present on campus. In this last video, I will talk about how to plan a field day event. Each field event should focus on a different invasive species. For instance, the Callaway County Task Force team targeted Bradford pears in fall 2021, and we were planning to target a different invasive, potentially Phragmites, in spring 2022. The specific target can be chosen based on invasive species issues found on a property you are going to treat, and/or your group may decide on an invasive species and then locate a property with it present to work on removal. Though we would like each county task force to choose a different species for each field event within a year, it may make sense to go back to the same properties over time to retreat, or if they have a larger issue that would take more than one day to make a difference. How often and if you revisit a site will be up to the teams, but please remember that monitoring post-management is a key part of the process, and this will be a great learning opportunity for the team members involved. Ultimately, though treatment and removal of invasive species is an objective of the RAIST, education is our main goal. We have collated the list of invasive plants above based on the opinions of multiple natural resource professionals. These would be excellent choices for targeting during a field event and for outreach. A team might also decide to conduct a field day related to an invasive animal, but we do ask that in these cases you are very careful with the messaging among team members and with the community, and work closely with the RAIST when planning your event. Once you have determined what species you will focus on, you will need to find a property to conduct the field day on. This could be private or public property within the county your task force works within. Though public property will be easiest to acquire access to, we do want to motivate your team to consider private lands as well, because this will be an opportunity to conduct outreach and education with the landowner about invasives on their property. Once you have chosen your land, regardless of if it is public or private, you should put together a draft management plan. This will allow the landowner or land manager the opportunity to see what your plan is so they can approve of it or ask you to modify where necessary. To make this plan, at least the team leader will need to visit the property with the landowner and potentially without the landowner to walk the property and determine the extent of invasive species problems. The plan should include a title, who it was prepared by, the property owner's name or names, the property location along with the map, information on the history and current management occurring on the site, current conditions and problems, objectives, which may include short and long-term objectives depending on the severity of the problem, and finally, a treatment plan with a map. This plan should be shared with the landowner and our manager, and written approval of the plan and permission for your team to be conducting the work on their property should be obtained. You should also share this final plan with the RAIST so we can have a record of and demonstrate the awesome work you all have been doing. Once you have your plan, equipment, and team, you will want to schedule a field day that works for most team members and the landowner or manager. These field days can vary in the amount of time devoted to them, but based on my experience, a full 7 to 8 hour field day is best for providing team members with training, experience, and to feel like we have accomplished something. Up to 1 to 1.5 hours should be spent training the team prior to using any herbicides or other tools you may use for your event. This will depend on if all that are in attendance have been at a field event before, their background knowledge, etc. The team leader will need to determine how much training is needed. For us, most students at our first field event had not done much in the way of direct management. Thus, we spent about 1.5 hours discussing what invasive species we were targeting and why, different ways we could approach the invasive species issues on our private landowner's property, many of which may take less time but be much more expensive, and discussing the approach we were taking and going over relevant skills they would need for us to remove the invasive Bradford pears and other native woody vegetation that had encroached into the prairie we were working in. Because we decided to use the cut stump method, we went over mixing herbicides, talking about herbicide safety while doing this, and then demonstrated cutting of a stump and application of the herbicide to it. Relevant training will vary depending on your field day objectives. We then divided it into 3 teams. 2 teams were using loppers to cut the woody vegetation. In these teams, 1 member was in charge of application of the herbicide to the stumps, 2 were in charge of cutting, and 2 were in charge of moving woody vegetation out of the way and into piles. The last team was led by an individual trained to work with a chainsaw, and students in this group moved woody vegetation, and 1 person applied the herbicide as they moved. Students often rotated between jobs so they could get experience in completing multiple tasks. Again, the best approach to your field day will vary depending on objectives, number of team members, and for other various reasons. During the event and at the end of the day, it is always important to focus on the accomplishments the group has made. Make sure to take the time to celebrate your accomplishments with your team. Once your field day is complete, you should share an update of the day, including pictures with the RAIST, and, if possible, share your accomplishment via press release and or social media posting. Another component of the field day is outreach with the community. Having community members directly involved in the field day may be difficult because of logistical issues, but that will be up to the team leader and team to decide. The Callaway County Task Force team decided for our field day event to hold a concurrent outreach program for younger kids. Our field day occurred the weekend of Halloween, so we called our program the Spooky Invasive event. At the event, which was held on campus, the kids learned a song made up by one of the team members about kudzu, made a kudzu leaf monster, and received a package with the items shown here. The event went decently with approximately 25 to 30 kids attending. In the future, we plan to collaborate with other larger events like the Sustainability Summit held each spring on the MSU campus, which will allow us to reach more people. Moreover, the outreach completed by the team does not have to be a specific event, but could be more ongoing or relate to sharing educational materials with classrooms, etc. We hope teams will be creative and use the skill sets they have within them to achieve these educational objectives with the general community. And finally, though the teams will be independently working on their events, we hope all teams will always remember that they are part of a larger community, all working towards similar goals. We aim to have a race-coordinated annual meeting of all participating county task force teams. The intent of the meeting will be to improve upon methodologies and strategies moving forward by sharing individual team successes and areas where they have struggled.